start recording here too. So basically, what I'm going to go over today is optionals. What is an optional and stuff like that. An optional is just a way of how you tell data that, like, how you tell the compiler that a value can be nil, right? And nil is just basically something that's empty. Because there's gonna be some occasions where you want to include the option where, like, oh, hey, this might be empty, right? And you don't want to define a value. And in those cases, you make a type in optional. And what you do is you simply add a question mark like this, right? Non-optional looks like this. It doesn't have a question mark. And optional has a question mark. And what this is basically saying is that, okay, there's a chance that this could be nil, right? Like, there's a chance that somewhere throughout my program that could be nil. And nil just basically means it's kind of like, I think, like an empty. It's basically saying that this has no value and it's nil. This is what it is, right? And I think here, let me see if I have optionals. I don't know. I should have a whole. I don't know if I'll find it, but I could. I'll look for it later on. So I'll look for it later on. So basically, that's how you define a variable being an optional. This is allowed to be nil. This cannot be nil, right? You can, if you put something like this, input string equals nil, the error will give you an error. Not even going to compile. It's just going to tell you, hey, this can't be nil, right? And if you do this here, right, it can be nil.
Yeah.
Now you're probably wondering, okay, what's the point? So basically the whole point is that, well, like I mentioned before, you want it to be, you want to allow it so that it can be nil, right? And if it can be nil, you want to be able to access that data, right? How do you check, hey, is there a value in it? Is it nil? And the way you do it is it's called unwrapping an optional, right? And what unwrapping an optional is basically you're checking if there's a value in that variable, right? You're checking, hey, is this equal to nil? If it's equal to nil, I want you to do this. If it's not nil, then you access the value, right? It's kind of like a box analogy. That's what I think the book does. Is you're unwrapping it and you're seeing what it has inside, right? And you're checking, hey, does this have a value, or is it just nil? It's empty, right? And one way to check if an optional string is nil is you just do an if statement. If this variable name is not equal to nil, you do this, right? And this is how you would check. There's an elegant way of checking if a value is nil, right? Now I'm going to show you a better way to do this, which is another way. So now here, what I'm doing is I see how I create an if let statement. What this is doing is I'm unwrapping the optional here, and I'm making it a variable. This is what let is going to be like. If this is an optional string, you're gonna make this the value, right? And it's gonna be unwrapped. So if I were to put, like, if I print unwrap, let me see, unwrap string. If I print optional string, right, it's gonna print this value right here, or this value right here. It's gonna print optional hello world, right? It's like in a box, and then the value is inside the box, right? Now if I do if let equals optional string, and then let's say I print this, it's gonna be hello world, and it's not gonna have the optional value inside of it. And then I have the optional thing surrounding it. Because what you're doing here is you're just unwrapping the box, and then you're checking if the value is in there. If the value is in there, you assign it to a variable called unwrapped string, right? And in here, I'm just making, if this is, let's say if we were to set this variable to nil, if we made it empty, right? This will never print because it's gonna give you nil, right? It doesn't even print. So this prints and this doesn't. And the only reason is because if it's nil, I mean, you don't really do anything. So far regarding this, do you have a question? This is probably one of the hardest topics regarding Swift, but I think and he uses it a lot.
So in order to use the if statement, do we have to include let? So it has to be if let.
So if you want to assign it to a variable, yes. So you see how here I didn't use like if let. Like here I didn't use if let. Yeah. But what this does, if I were to print this right here, it's gonna print like optional. It's gonna print. What did I print? It should print like optional something. Let me see, optional. Yeah, it should print. Because I made it nil here. So if you print this, you see how it prints optional hello world. Yeah, because it's not unwrapped. I mean, you know that there's not a value in there. You've opened the box, but you don't really retrieve it. You just print. You're just putting out the box. What the let keyword does is that basically you retrieves the value and assigns it to a variable. So if let, right, this is going to be the name of your variable, and this is the optional that you're unwrapping, right? And then if there's a value in this, right, you assign it to unwrapped string, and then you print it, or you do whatever you want to do in your inside of your body. There's some cases where you do want to do this. And it's usually easier to do it. It's cleaner code. But you don't have to if you don't want to. And I'll show you. I think there should be another example here. And you're also able to unwrap multiple optionals at a time. So like here, I have optional 1 and I have optional 2, right? One of them is a string and one of them is an integer of type int. And you can unwrap. This is how you would unwrap multiple optionals, right? And if you print this, you're just gonna print some string and 4. Right? And you see how these are like they don't have the optional and then the parentheses and then whatever value inside of them. This is because they're unwrapped. And the value.
Sorry. Go ahead.
And the value, this unwrapped one is only available inside of the brackets. It's not available like outside.
Okay, that was my question.
No, that was your question. Yeah, it was right here. Yeah, you're only able to you can access optional 1 like up here, right? Like anywhere else, right? But it'll always, if there's a nil value, there's a chance it could crash your program. If you like, let's say like you use it somewhere and then it turns out that it's nil, but you need a value, and the compiler is just gonna yell at you, right? So usually it is you always, if there's an optional involved, you always want to do something like that. You always want to unwrap it to check if there's a value in there. Because it's just good practice to do it, because or else it could crash your program, and the compiler will yell at you. And like I said here, the value is only an unwrapped value. It's only accessible inside of the if let statement. Now, in functions, there's this cool. I'm actually not going to go over the gut statement. I'll go over it later. Now, have you ever used a ternary operator?
No.
Have you ever seen this right here?
No.
Okay. So basically, you could also there's a lot of times there's a cleaner way of doing this where you don't have to do the whole if let statement. And a neat way to do this is you basically use the del colon blessing operator. I think I said it wrong. But what you do is you name a variable, right? And then you type in the name of your optional, right? And what this is, and then you type in two question marks, right? And what this is doing is just checking. Okay, let's check if this contains a value, right? And if it contains a value, then you're gonna assign it to unwrap default value. Now, if it doesn't contain a value, you have to have unwrapped string. You have to give this like some type of value, right? And this is the default, right? And it just says, oh, look, the box was empty, right? And he's just gonna print that. Like if I print this, it's gonna print hello world, right? And the reason he prints hello world is because there's a value in the optional string, right? And it's just a simple. This is just the same thing that we're doing up here, except it's cleaner. And it's just one line of code. And there's some. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, so one question mark, if you put it right next to the function, it only means nil, and two question marks means the if let statement.
Okay. One question. Yeah, basically, this is just sort of unwrapping it and checking if it's because you could also use it for other things, but technically yes, that's what it would be used for. In this case, there's other scenarios where you could use this, but I'm not going to go over that.
Okay.
And then here, right, if I make the optional nil, right, this is the optional string. If I make it nil, it's gonna print out this thing right here. Oh, it looks like the box was empty, right? Because it gives it. You have to when you do this, you have to always give it a default value, because it can't be empty, because this is not an optional. So you're unwrapping this string, and then if there's a value in here, you assign it to unwrapped string with default value too. If there's not, you give it this default value. Now, there's some cases where you could do this with strings. I'm not going to go over that. And then, now, there's some cases where you want to forcibly unwrap an optional, right? Because you could also be like, okay, I know that this is always going to have a string, so I can just I can just use the exclamation mark to make sure to just unwrap it. And he does the whole if less statement, and it just unwraps it, right? Mm-hmm. This does it. This right here, what it does is just unwraps it forcibly. Is what it does, because you're like, okay, I'm so sure that there's a value in here that I'm just gonna unwrap it. Now, you don't always want to do this, and I suggest you don't do this a lot. You only do it when you're really really confident. Because if you're wrong about this, and this value is nil, it can crash your program, or your app. And then in this case, right, it's gonna give me an error. It's gonna say, oh, hey, you can't do that. And a lot of times it's just, you probably, you just want to make sure. This is just gonna work in some case scenarios. It's not always gonna be. You don't always want to do this. Now, regarding optionals, do you have a question? Any confusion?
No, as of right now, no.
Do you feel confused or anything regarding, or how do you feel about it?
Well, I'm just kind of confused on like the whole coding for Swift because I never used Swift before, so this whole thing is brand new to me.
Okay, it's fine. I think as long as I think as long as you see more coding examples, you'll feel a little more sure.
Yeah, I just need to practice more on the language.
Yeah, and then this is I think I downloaded the Swift programming language, and it has a lot of examples too. There's also it's online, and it's free too. It's like the one designed by Apple. And if you have a Mac and you go to the iBooks and then you search up um, the Swift programming language, it should be there. But this is how it goes, and it has optionals and stuff like that. Um,
Where could I find that page? I just search up the Swift
so if you go to iBooks
iBooks.
and then you go to bookstore and you go to Swift programming language, you should be there. You'll be able to find it. And you can just download it. For me, it tells me to update, but for you, it should be download. And I would want you to delete that too, Mario, the whole iBook stuff, so it doesn't make the whole lecture long. So if you don't have any other questions, I'm going to go to this, to our project. And for this project, you just have to download the drive, the thing that was in the drive. And you just open it right now. And all you have to do is you just have to, when you open it, just run it. Make sure you're using the iPhone 11 simulator, and just run it. I mean, it doesn't. You can use any, but I'm not using constraints. So you want to use the iPhone 11 Pro. Sorry. Just because. Okay, no, it's iPhone 11 actually, not iPhone 11 Pro. And just run it and make sure that it looks good on your simulator. It's not really gonna do anything. But just so that you know that it works. And let me know when you do that.
Okay. Because it's coming now. Let me try to download it again. Somehow the reason my is not downloading. I mean, we could continue with the lecture and then I'll get it to work hopefully.
Okay, so did I okay. Are you actually? It's because it's part of like the coding problem, but I can also send you the full solution. Of the code. Okay, so now we have that. Let me see. Let me open actually my other. Okay. So now what I did here is I have some of the setup already done for you. I created the classes. You don't have to worry about classes yet. I haven't really gone over classes. So that's why I created it. You don't have to understand this yet. I created a concentration class, which is just the game itself. And I created a card, which is just one of these right here. And then it just basically says that a card can be faced up. It can already be matched, and then each card has an identifier. And I take care of this right here. I'm not gonna go over the static stuff just because I don't want to get into that just yet. I'll probably go over classes next week, and then I'll go over this code. And in our view controller, I added a car buttons, and it's an array of car buttons. I added a label, which is this label right here. And this is just a reference to the label. I added, or I guess I added a flip count label, and I added a game store label, which is this is the flip count label. This is a score label, and this is the button right here. And the new game button, which is just an action. And it should be something here. It might be this one right here. It's this one right here. This is the new game button pressed. And the way I set that up, I went to my main. Went to my view controller. Oh, sorry. And then okay. Then what I did is for the buttons, I just did this right here. I dragged it in. You don't have to do this because I already have this set up for you, but I'm just showing how I did it. And I created an outlet and card buttons, right? And once you add one, and if it's sorry, so something like that, and then you make sure it's an outlet collection, right? And if it's an outlet collection, it's gonna have something like this. It's gonna say UI button. It's gonna be a collection of buttons, and then all I did after that is I just dragged in every single one to it. Since I already did it, you don't have to worry about that. And if you watch the first lecture, or it might be the first or second lectures, I go over this too. It may have been the first lecture actually. And
Yeah, I
then
remember doing that, connecting the element to the function.
mm, okay. And then for the label, I did the same thing. I just connected the flip count label, and then for this, I just connected flips label too. And then for this, I just connected an action, which is just a new game button action. And if you hover over this, you should be able to see it like hovered. It's pretty cool thing about it. And you have all the buttons right there. Okay, so now since I added that, right, I have my model done. I'm not gonna go over this till next week. So there might be some things that you're gonna be like, okay, what is this? And I'll try to describe it to the best of my ability. But for now, you don't have to understand. You can read over if you want, but I haven't gone over classes just yet. So now what we want to do is that we want to instantiate our model, right? And the way you do this is you type in var game equals concentration, which is the name of our model, right? And you want to do how many cards do we have, right? And then we have around, or how many pairs of cards, number of pairs of cards. We have around, what? How many do we actually have? We have around 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have around 12, right? No, we have around 6 pairs of cards. What we can do is we can just type in 6 right here. And then this, what it does is just going to create 6 cards within the model, right? It doesn't create anything in the view, because we already have the view set up. And what this does is just creates 6 pairs of cards. Now, if you run this, it might not work, or it won't work. And the reason why is because you have to wait till this is instantiated. So if you wanted to, let's say if you wanted to access this within here, that that card buttons or whatever, it wouldn't work. So what you can do is you can just add the lazy var keyword. And what this does is just basically allows you to access this variable, even when it's not like instantiated just yet. And it's called lazy. And a lot of times it'll give you an error, and it'll tell you, hey, that doesn't work, whatever, and then you just add the lazy keyword.
When should you use the lazy keyboard?
What? Sorry?
When should you use the lazy keyboard?
So
When
you
is
use
the
it
right
when
moment to use it?
okay, you use it when you want to access like a certain variable when it's not yet instantiated.
Oh, okay.
And that's the only reason why. That's why I just did the lazy, and it just basically says like, okay, I know that this is gonna be instantiated at one point, but I want to access it right now, and then you just access it. It lets you access it.
Okay.
Okay, and then now what you want to do is you want to set up your view. I have already this set up, right? I have the emojis. And this is just an emoji choices. It's an empty array of strings. Emoji itself is a dictionary of type integer and string. I'll show you what a dictionary is right now. And a cool way of doing this is Now, what you want to do is you want to be able to get an emoji from a specific card, right? And the way you would do that is you would create an what is it called, a getting emoji from emoji choices. And what you would do is you would just create a function called emoji. I call it emojis. For a card of type card, right? And then let's see. I'm not make it not return anything. Okay. And what this does is what we want to do here, our main goal of this function is you want to input a card, right? And we want to assign that card a specific emoji, right? It's going to be one of these emojis, right? And the way you would do this is you put a card and then we return a string at the end because this is an array of string. This takes in the name of our function is emojis, and then its variable name is parameter is card and type card. Now, what you want to do is you want to check if the game has chosen before equals array emoji keys. Don't. This is just accessing the model and it's just checking if that card has been chosen before. And then now this checks if card has been chosen before. And now what you would do is you want access to you want to be able to access the specific indexes of these, right? And the way you do this is you do something like this. You if emoji and card, each card has an identifier equals nil, right? And you see how this is an optional value, like right here, right? If this has a nil value, right, then you want to check if it exists. And then do emoji choices dot count. And don't worry too much if you don't understand what this does. Again, it might be a little bit confusing at first. I just wanted to go over this example because it covers some really cool things about optional values. And what this is doing again is just checking if it's nil, and then you want to make sure that emoji that count is equal to it's greater than 0. That's not empty, and it's just part of the if statement, right? It's just checking, okay, we're only going inside of these two brackets if these two values are true. And inside of here, you get a random index. And the way you get a random index, it's doing something like arg for random. Let me see. Use something like this. It's just very simple to read syntax. So what it does is you use arg for random uniform, and then you want to do uint 32. You don't have to worry too much about what these do. But all you have to know is that it basically creates a random integer. And you convert from arg for random uniform to you convert that. It's a uint32. And you convert that to an integer. And then you want to define like to what index you want to create a random index. So I think you create one from 0 to emojis that count. Which again, emojis is going to be that array of emoji strings. So if this is 3, it's going to create an element from 0 to 3. Are there any questions regarding this? Do you have any questions?
As of now, no.
It might be a little bit daunting at first.
I have to actually like look at some YouTube videos so I could be knowing what are the libraries in Swift, what you can and cannot do.
Sounds good. So we have 0 to emojis that count. And then now what you want to do is you want to emoji, and you want to just remove and do something. And once you get this random index, right, you want to make the emoji card identifier dot identifier equal to emoji choices dot remove at random index, right? So you just make that specific identifier be equal to that emoji choices at random index. Should be able to run. Okay, should run. It doesn't do anything just yet. And then okay, so now if for whatever reason, this if statement, if for whatever reason the emoji is nil, what you want to do here, like if for whatever reason, we don't, if it's actually not, if at the end if it's equal to nil, you just make it, you just give it a default value of question mark, and then when you press this, it will just show you a question mark, and it'll be like, hey, it's a it was from our it was from, I kept on hearing a lot of Discord noises, and I guess it's from the voice text. So now, okay. So now this, what it does is just gets an emoji from emoji choices. This is all we're literally doing here. So you're pretty good with this, right? You know that this is just checking if it's nil, checking if it's greater than 0, and then you just access a random index, and you make the emoji array equal to emoji, or emoji dictionary equal to the emoji choices that remove. And like I showed you previously, it removes it from emoji choices, and it also, what's it called, returns it, right? So we remove it from emoji choices, and we assigned it to the emoji. And here we just return. Now we have that. Okay. Now let me see what we can do next. Now what we could do is we could check. We could do an action of, like, let's check when we touch a card. We want to check if if that card has we want to make it show some emoji, right? And what we could do is if let card from our model, and then we want to choose a card from our model based on the button index. And after that, we want to update our view model. If not, if there's something wrong here, we just want to print button is not in the collection of card buttons. Do you have a question regarding this? This is just basically checking. Okay, it doesn't update the model just yet. It doesn't update the view, but it just what this does is this is being called every time I press one of these. Do you have a question regarding that, or any questions?
No.
Okay, this is basically checking checking if if this card buttons exist, if the button that was pressed exists in this collection of buttons. And then now we want to update our game, right? And what we want to do is we want to do a couple of things. We want to update our game score label, update our flip count label, right? And then we want to update the card buttons, right? When we press it. What we want to go through is we go for I in card buttons, right? That indices, and basically what it does here, it just makes the card buttons arrange. Basically what it's doing. And here, right here, it's going to be a range of type range. And then what we can do is we can access one of the buttons inside of the card buttons, right? Card buttons I, let card, those game cards. What it's doing right here, we access a specific button in the array, right? And then we access a card in the array of cards inside our model. And then now we check, okay, is the card face up? And if the card's face up, you do button dot set title and then emoji for card, type card, not normal. Basically, what it's doing is just setting the title of the button, and then we put the emoji, which is the function that we just created right now, emoji, and then we just set it as a normal, state normal. And then we make the button, the background color when it's face up, let's make it white. Now, if it's not face up, right, we want our card button to be that little orange color. And what we do is just put button that set title. We want it to be empty, dot normal, and do button dot background color equals if the card is matched, we want to set it to clear dot clear. If it's not matched, we can do with this orange color right here. And then the way you create, I can also add this right here into the project folder too. It's just a little color snippet. It allows you to choose from any color you want. And do you have any questions regarding this?
No, that's just to help flip the cards, right?
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
that code right there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Um, and then after we have this, and then if let's choose a card. Okay, so now let's update our model. Let's see if it works. Okay, now see, it shows a question mark. What exactly we could want. So now, let's see. We want to instantiate all of these with emojis. And a way of doing that, I got a match. See how I was able to get a match in some places? Because it's actually, I mean, the system itself works. So now we want to instantiate this array right here, emoji choices, right? And what we can do is we could do in our view download. Usually when we first call, the first thing that's called when we set up, when we run our simulator, is your view download. If you can see, it's usually the first thing that's called. So when you call this, right, what you want to do is you want to choose the set of emojis that you want shown here, right? It's gonna be based from one of these themes, right? It can be faces, it can be Halloween, it can be sports, cars, right? Whatever you want. What we do here is we set emoji choices equal to game dot get random theme of emoji choices theme. And what this is doing basically is we're setting emoji choices again. If it's emoji choices, it's an array of strings to some array, right? It's one of these right here. We can do an array of faces. It can be one of these. It can be either one of them. And that's what it's basically doing. It just gets a random theme of emoji choices theme. And now if we run the simulator and we still show the question mark. Okay, so I think we still need to do some stuff. Let me check if I'm missing anything. Maybe I may be having a bug actually. Let me fix this one right here. Card. Okay, now it works. It was probably a bug right here. I'll fix. It should be this updated function. I may have done something wrong. Okay. So now, as you can see, I created my what's it called? My random theme. I got my random theme. When I first call, right? When I first run my simulator, the first thing that's called. Actually, that's a lie. There's other stuff that is called, which I won't go over. But just know that for now, this is the first thing that's called. And when you first run it, it's kind of like your main in C++, right? And when it's first called, you just want to instantiate emoji choices, and now it just shows your emoji choices. Let's see, and I think if I'm able to, where's the lollipop? Oh, lollipop is right here, and see, and I'm able to get matches too. Okay, so now that we have that, let's see what else we could add to our game. Okay, let's say now we want to update our score. Should we update our score? Let's update our score. The way you would do it is you would do game score label dot text, right? Which is just the label right here. Game score label dot text is equal to game dot game store, right? Which is just game is our model, and it gives the score of the game. Now, if you run this is actually an integer, so you won't run. So what you want to do is you just want to typecast it, and this is how you typecast in Swift. And now if we run this, see if that works. And see, I think you might, no, it's not the right one. This is a weather one. May have been one of these. And see how I'm losing? I'm losing every time I get one wrong. The score decreases. But then if I get one, I increase the score. Okay, that works. And then now if we want to update our flip count label, right, what we do is just do flip count dot text equals string dot game dot flip count. Okay, and then if we do a flip count, see how it shows you now. It updates the flip count. And all of this stuff, like when you're checking every time he flips, it does that all in the model, which I won't go over just yet. Okay. So now that we have that, one more thing that we want to do is we have our give score. We want to set up our new game function. And all we do for our new game function is we go to our new game button pressed method. It's an IB action. And all you do is you got game score label. You set up the game score label dot text equal to string game score. Then you do game that start a new game number of 36. So we have in total we have 6 pairs of cards. And then you want to call a function that just restarts your UI. Or you want to restart your model. Your emoji choices. Restart your emoji choices. And then you want to update your view model. Now let's call, we have function restart emoji choices right here. And then we can do update our view model. And in our restart emoji choices, all we want to do here is just want to check if dot emoji choices dot is empty. You just want to add an array of emoji values. And then you just want to remove all the emojis. Remove all. You want to remove all. You want to make sure that your dictionary is also empty. And then if the say else if it's not empty, if there's values in there, all you want to if it's empty actually, all you want to do is just make your emoji choices equal array emoji dot values, and then you do emoji dot remove all. And just basically what it is just removing all of the elements in the emoji, and then here it's just assigning the values inside. You're just getting emoji values, setting the emoji values equal to emoji choices. And then the last thing that we want to do inside of here is just want to make emoji choices and then assign it to game dot get random theme of emoji themes. And all we're doing here is just we're getting the theme of the emojis. And that concludes the end of our game. If we run it, and now we put new game, it just restarts, right? So we have and we restart, it sets up everything from scratch. It picks a different theme too. It picks up different theme. And essentially what we're doing here is just restarting the emoji choices, which is just these right here. In this, and it's just to finalize some thoughts. I think I mentioned this at the end. We used model view controller, which I'm not gonna go over just yet. It's just usually I find for this tutorial I find it easier to just create the model for you, and then next week I'll go over this model, and I'll go over this model, and then once we start learning classes, and that should be it. Mario, I am done.